A sky full of whispers opens like a slow breath in the dark, where the world feels quiet and endless. The tone is calm, a lullaby made of curiosity and distance. Imagine standing alone beneath an ancient sky, one without city lights or the hum of engines, where the stars seem impossibly close and alive. For as long as humans have existed, we've looked upward for meaning. The heavens have always been both comfort and mystery, a canvas for the mind and the spirit alike. When the world below was uncertain, people found their stories in the lights above, tracing constellations to explain fate, weather, birth, and death. But sometimes, among the familiar stars, something different appeared, something that did not belong. In the earliest memories of civilization, strange lights moved across the sky. Not the predictable sweep of the moon or the steady glow of Venus, but sudden sparks, wandering fires, shapes that seemed alive. The ancients watched in silence, unsure if these were messages from gods or warnings of disaster. The skies, vast and unknowable, became a language they longed to read. Some called them omens, others divine messengers, and some feared them as spirits or dragons. Every culture, in its own quiet way, wrote down what it saw, turning confusion into story and wonder into prayer. The night, especially before electricity, carried its own texture, a living silence broken only by wind or water. When a light moved where none should be, it was impossible to ignore. Imagine a shepherd in Mesopotamia, looking up from his fire to see a glowing sphere drifting soundlessly across the stars. He might have whispered a name, a plea, a question. That same gesture would echo thousands of years later in the eyes of sailors, monks, and scientists. The unknown in the sky has never lost its power to make us feel small and watched at once. Our ancestors try to describe these moments the only way they could. In cuneiform tablets and carved stone, in temple paintings and whisper traditions, they recorded what they saw: burning shields, wheels of fire, pillars of light. Each description changed slightly with time, but the essence remained, a sense of something beyond the familiar, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. We can almost feel their mixture of awe and fear, their awareness that something immense was moving above them, unseen by most, but unforgettable to those who caught a glimpse. Even now, when satellites and aircraft fill the sky, the same feeling returns when a light flickers where it shouldn't. That flicker is ancient. It's the same pulse that once made entire villages stop and point toward the heavens, wondering what lived there. The same rhythm that made astronomers draw new constellations and poets call the stars home for the soul. We have named and measured the sky, but we have not tamed it. It still hums with the memory of those early watchers, their fears, their dreams, their endless curiosity. And perhaps that is what the sky truly is, a vast, reflective ocean that shows us ourselves. The more we learn, the more its mysteries seem to multiply. Science explains comets, meteors, auroras, and yet behind every explanation hides another layer of the unknown. What they saw, those ancient people, may have had ordinary causes or perhaps not. The uncertainty itself is the melody of this story. It invites us to linger in the middle ground between knowledge and wonder, where imagination can rest without needing answers. The voice of this story slows now, like a deep inhale before a long dream. The narrator invites the listener to lie back, to close their eyes, to picture that first civilization staring upward into the same sky you see tonight. The stars have not changed. The mysteries they hold have not grown dim. Whether those early lights were divine, natural, or something stranger still, they remind us that the search for meaning began long before us, and it continues every time we look up. We are part of that same lineage of watchers, standing beneath a canopy of quiet motion, feeling both safe and exposed. The universe above us hums softly, patient and eternal. Somewhere in its expanse, lights flicker and fade, as they always have, carrying stories older than language itself. And so this journey begins, not with certainty, but with a question whispered into the dark. Have we always been alone beneath the stars, or have the stars been speaking to us all along? Fire in the firmament, that was how the ancients described it, a slow, shimmering glow that slid across the heavens, unclaimed by the familiar constellations. To them, the sky was alive, a vast ocean where gods sailed their radiant ships. In the earliest civilizations, when written words were young and myths were still forming, people carved their astonishment into stone. On Babylonian tablets, priests recorded omens drawn from the sky. Fiery wheels, glowing discs, pillars of brightness that moved against the stars. These weren't casual observations. They were warnings, messages from realms beyond mortal comprehension. When a light appeared unexpectedly, kings trembled, and priests searched their celestial charts for meaning. The heavens were a stage for the divine, and the actors who appeared there were rarely friendly. In ancient Rome, chroniclers described nights when shields of fire clashed above the city, when spears of light seemed to fall upon the earth. Tacitus and Pliny wrote of armies seen marching among the clouds, of burning globes that drifted above battlefields before vanishing into thin air. In Greece, philosophers debated whether such lights were tricks of the elements or signs from Olympus. Yet even as reason began to stir, the awe remained. There was something in those sightings that felt deliberate, intelligent, and personal, as though the universe were peering back. Far to the east, in China, astronomers kept meticulous sky records that stretch unbroken across millennia. Among them are notes of guest stars, flaming banners, and flying lanterns that appeared suddenly and then disappeared without pattern. Some of these may have been comets or meteors, but others defying neat classification. They moved too slowly, or hovered too long, or glowed too steadily to be dismissed as natural. When these phenomena appeared, emperors sent offerings to heaven, fearing the balance between realms had been disturbed. The night sky, for them, was a living scripture, every flicker a sentence written by celestial hands. The pattern repeats in every corner of the world. In the deserts of Arabia, nomads told stories of the jinn lights, wandering flames that followed travelers and vanished if approached. In Mesoamerica, the Maya spoke of blazing serpents that crossed the heavens before the rise of kings. In the lands of the Norse, the aurora was believed to be the armor of Valkyries flashing as they rode to gather the fallen. Each culture saw the same phenomena, yet clothed it in its own symbols, its own fears. To the human imagination, the lights were never just light. They were intention, presence, message. As centuries passed, the words changed, but the wonder remained. Medieval monks, staring from monastery towers, wrote of celestial wheels turning silently over their abbeys. In one account from the 9th century, witnesses described a great light descending over the river Rhine, shining brighter than the moon, before soaring upward again. Such stories, often whispered more than written, blurred the line between faith and the unknown. To speak too clearly of them risked heresy, but to ignore them felt impossible. The lights were both sacred and forbidden, reminders that creation itself might still be unfolding. Perhaps what makes these ancient reports so compelling is their consistency. Across time and geography, from the sands of Egypt to the forests of Japan, people described the same forms: spheres, discs, columns, and wheels. They moved with purpose, often soundless, often glowing with colors no fire could match. And while today we search for meteorological or astronomical explanations, something deeper persists in these accounts: the feeling of being seen. The witnesses did not merely observe, they felt observed. That subtle inversion. Humanity, no longer the watcher, but the watched, has haunted us ever since. It is tempting, from the comfort of modern science, to explain these events away. Ball lightning, comets, meteors, volcanic plumes, auroras, all could account for some of what the ancients saw. Yet explanations do not erase emotion. The trembling of a priest, the wonder of a farmer staring at a silent light that lingers too long in the night. Those moments cannot be reduced to weather or magnetism. What they experienced was not just a sight, but a shift in perception, a fleeting realization that the familiar dome above might conceal intelligence or intention or something we're not yet equipped to name. If one listens closely to these old records, they begin to sound like echoes of each other. The Babylonian fire wheels resemble the Roman shields of flame, which resemble the Japanese flying mirrors and the Celtic fiery ships. Perhaps it is coincidence, or perhaps it is continuity, a human reaction to a recurring phenomenon that has shadowed us since the beginning. The stories whisper that whatever moved across those skies was not bound by place or language. It appeared to shepherds and kings alike, indifferent to their worlds, luminous and brief, vanishing into memory. As the centuries turned, the stars became more charted, their patterns more familiar, yet the unpredictable glow still appeared from time to time, reminding us that knowledge is never complete. The ancients, for all their fear, might have understood something we forget. That mystery is not the absence of truth, but its horizon. To them, the fire in the firmament was not merely spectacle, it was conversation. The lights did not simply visit, they spoke in symbols. Perhaps they still do. The section closes in a tone of quiet reflection, imagining those long-ago nights when the world was simpler, but the sky was more alive. The fires above have faded into history's mist, but their echo remains in our language, our myths, and our instinct to look up when something moves against the stars. We may give them new names now, phenomena, satellites, flares, but the emotion they stir is ancient and unchanged. For as long as the night endures, we will keep searching the heavens for that flicker of impossible light, that brief reminder that the universe has not yet told us all its secrets. They call them gods, but perhaps they were something else. In the ancient imagination, the boundary between heaven and earth was a thin veil, a curtain that sometimes lifted to reveal radiant visitors who descended from the sky. Every culture told stories of beings who came from the stars, powerful, luminous, and unlike any mortal. To the Sumerians, they were the Anunnaki, deities who descended from the heavens and taught humankind the arts of civilization. The Egyptians spoke of Ra sailing his solar bark across the sky, his descent and ascent marking day and night. In the Vedic hymns of India, glowing chariots called Vimanas roared through the air, piloted by shining beings whose origins were celestial. These stories were not told as fantasy, but as memory. They described the gods not as distant, invisible forces, but as presences that once walked among men. Across the world, in Mesoamerica, the Maya and Aztec civilizations spoke of feathered serpents and shining lords who descended from the stars, bringing knowledge and order. Quetzalcoatl, the god of wisdom and wind, was said to have arrived from the east and departed promising to return one day. His image, radiant and half-human, suggests both divinity and something unearthly. In Greece, too, the sky was filled with movement and presence. The gods of Olympus hurled thunderbolts and rode chariots of light. Zeus himself was a god of the storm, his power drawn from the heavens, his wrath mirrored in lightning that split the night. Whether these myths emerged from imagination or experience, they reveal a pattern, a shared memory of something descending from above, briefly visible, profoundly transformative. In the deserts of the Near East, prophets described chariots of fire and wheels within wheels, filled with eyes and light. The book of Ezekiel offers one of the most detailed visions ever recorded, a great metallic structure emerging from the sky, shining like burnished bronze, surrounded by living creatures that glowed like fire. The description is so vivid that modern readers struggle to decide, was it a vision, a divine revelation, or an encounter with technology far beyond the time? To the prophet, it was sacred. To us, it reads like a report. That tension between faith and observation, has followed such accounts through every century. The stories of gods descending from the heavens are not isolated myths. They form a chorus, sung across continents that never met. The Dogon people of Mali spoke of beings from the star Sirius who taught them about the cosmos, knowledge that modern astronomy only confirmed millennia later. In Japan, the legend of the Himegami, the sky princess who descended in a glowing basket, tells of light falling gently to earth. In Polynesia, canoes of flame cross the sky, carrying ancestors who came to shape the islands. Always, the visitors arrive from above, radiant and powerful, bearing gifts or laws or knowledge, then return to the sky, promising to watch from afar. Perhaps these were metaphors for inspiration, the way light itself is a symbol for understanding. Or perhaps they were encounters, rare, fleeting, and incomprehensible, translated into the language of gods because no other explanation existed. The ancients did not separate the sacred from the physical. What they saw was what they worshipped. When the sky blazed with strange light, it meant that something immense was near, something that could change the fate of tribes and empires. Whether those moments were real or imagined, they shaped how humanity saw itself, not alone, but part of a larger, living cosmos. The temples and monuments these civilizations left behind seemed to echo this connection. In Sumer, ziggurats rose like stairways to the stars. In Egypt, pyramids pointed toward Orion, home of Osiris, the resurrected god. In the Andes, the temples of Tiwanaku aligned with the solstice sun, their stone carvings depicting winged beings with rays of light around their heads. Everywhere, the architecture of devotion mimicked ascent, a longing to return to where the gods had come from. Even now, those designs stir something deep within us, a recognition, a memory of looking upward in reverence and in wonder. The more we study these myths, the more they blur the line between religion and recollection. Were these gods divine metaphors, or were they distant visitors interpreted through the lens of spirituality? The stories carry clues: the shimmering descent, the blinding light, the noise like thunder or wind, the promise to return. They describe awe, yes, but also detail, flight, sound, motion, light. These are the words of witnesses, not poets alone. And yet, if they truly saw something from beyond, why did it choose to reveal itself in such ways, and then withdraw? Perhaps to inspire, perhaps to guide, perhaps to test how humanity would remember. The tone softens now, returning to the timeless rhythm of the storyteller. Imagine a night in ancient Egypt, the desert cold, the stars trembling above. A priest stands before a statue of Ra, whispering prayers as a light appears beyond the horizon, slow, silent, gliding across the dark. To him, it is the god returning to bless the land. To us, it is an image lost in time, forever uncertain. Yet both versions of the story carry the same emotion: wonder, the kind that keeps eyes lifted skyward even after the light has faded. Perhaps the visitors were never meant to stay. Perhaps their purpose was simply to remind us that the universe is not empty. In every culture's mythology, there is an echo of something that came from the stars and promised to come again. Whether gods, ancestors, or travelers, their legacy endures in the stories that refuse to fade. As a narrator's voice softens into calm reflection, the ancient world drifts like mist through the mind. The gods have returned to their heavens, but their presence lingers in the ruins, in the rituals, and in the eternal human instinct to look up and wonder who, or what, might be looking back. They called them voyagers, but time has erased their names. Long before maps found their edges and compasses learned the magnetic north, the seas were a realm of whispers and speculation. The horizon was a living boundary between the known and the unthinkable, and sailors who crossed it often vanished into legend. The oceans of the ancient world were not empty. They shimmered with strange lights, phantom ships, and stories of guidance from above. Every voyage was a prayer against the unknown, and every disappearance became part of myth that blurred fact with mystery. Among the oldest of these tales is that of the Phoenicians, the master navigators of the Mediterranean. Their ships ventured farther than any others, sailing beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, into the open Atlantic, where the sea grew darker and the stars unfamiliar. According to ancient accounts, they reached lands lush and green, perhaps as far as the British Isles, perhaps farther still. They returned with medals, with stories of islands that glowed faintly in the night, and with a quiet they did not put into words. Later Greek writers would claim they saw floating fires that moved with the ships, dancing upon the waves before vanishing into the mist. Were these natural lights, phosphorescence, perhaps, or something more deliberate, something watching them as they sailed toward the edges of their maps? Centuries later, a strange document would emerge, the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral who claimed his sources were ancient sea charts passed down through unknown hands. The map shows not just the known continents of its time, but parts of South America and even the coastline of Antarctica, drawn centuries before its discovery and in a form accurate only to modern cartography. The mysterious precision of the map invites questions that history cannot comfortably answer. Did the ancients travel farther than we believe? Were their guides celestial, their knowledge inherited from a civilization lost beneath the tides? The Piri Reis map is like a relic from a forgotten voyage, an echo of a world that knew more than it should have. From the Mediterranean to the Pacific, myths of lost sailors repeat the same refrain. Polynesian navigators spoke of luminous birds that guided their canoes across thousands of miles of open ocean. In Norse sagas, seafarers told of ghostly ships glowing in the fog, appearing just before great storms or deaths at sea. The Celts believed that beyond the western horizon lay Tir na Nog, the land of eternal youth, where the waters shimmered with light and time stood still. The Greeks called it Atlantis. The Arabs called it the Sea of Darkness. Whatever the name, it was always the same story, a voyage begun in faith and ended in disappearance, guided by lights no one could explain. Even in more recent centuries, strange lights have been recorded at sea. Before radar, before satellites, sailors depended on instinct and sky. Many claimed to see floating orbs that followed their ships, sometimes above the water, sometimes beneath it. In the logbooks of early explorers, Columbus among them, there are entries describing a flame of light rising from the sea and moving swiftly upward. On the night before landfall in the New World, Columbus noted a mysterious glow that flickered along the horizon, visible to several crew members. He wrote of it calmly, as though aware that to call it divine or unnatural might unsettle men already frightened by the edge of the world. The ocean has always been a mirror for the sky. Its surface reflects the heavens, turning every light above into a twin below. For sailors, the two realms, sky and sea, were inseparable. If a star moved strangely, it could mean the wind would shift or a storm was near. If a light followed them across the waves, it might be a spirit or a sign or simply a trick of the mind. But what if the ocean's lights were not reflections at all? What if something moved through both realms, guiding, watching, recording? The thought is gentle but unsettling, like the hum of a distant current. Legends of lost voyages always end in silence. A ship leaves port under a bright sky, its sails catching the wind, and then it is never seen again. Years later, pieces wash ashore, planks, rope, fragments of a name. The rest remains swallowed by time. Yet the stories persist because of the strange details, the last sightings of lights following the vessel, the sudden calm before disappearance, the lingering glow seen from coastal cliffs. Fishermen in every age tell of sea candles, blue and gold flames that burn on the horizon with no fire to feed them. Some say they mark where lost ships still wander, sailing endlessly under a foreign sky. The mystery of the lost voyagers is not simply about where they went, but what they followed. In the ancient world, sailors navigated by the stars, trusting that the same lights that shone on their ancestors would lead them home. But sometimes the stars changed. Sometimes a new light appeared, low, moving, unpredictable. To follow it was an act of faith. Some found land, others found only the deep. The sea keeps its secrets well, and the voices of those who saw too much are buried with their bones beneath the shifting sands. As the narrative drifts towards stillness, the image becomes almost dreamlike. A lone ship on an endless ocean, sails full of starlight, crews silent as a pale glow hovers above the waves. It moves when they move, stops when they stop, neither storm nor reflection. The air is warm, the sea calm, but everyone aboard feels the same quiet unease, the sense that they are not alone. When morning comes, the light is gone, leaving only the faint memory of radiance and the feeling of being gently observed. The sea, like the sky, is both map and mystery. Its depths hide what its surface reflects. The lost voyagers of history may never return, but their stories endure because of that single, shared experience, the sight of impossible light guiding them into darkness. In the calm between waves, under constellations that never change, the ocean still whispers their names. And somewhere, perhaps, those same lights drift still, waiting for another ship brave enough, or foolish enough, to follow. There is something endlessly haunting about the sea at night. The water stretches into infinity, reflecting a sky too vast to understand. The line between heaven and ocean blurs until it seems the stars themselves have fallen to float upon the waves. For sailors throughout history, this sight was both comfort and warning. The sea glowed, it whispered, it breathed light. And within that glow were mysteries older than any map. Mysteries that seemed to watch, to guide, or to deceive. Strange lights upon the water have followed ships since the first plank met the tide, and their stories shimmer still, part science, part legend, and part dream. They called it St. Elmo's fire, the soft blue flames that would dance upon the tips of ship masts during storms. To the eyes of weary sailors, it was a miracle and a curse. In the thunder and rain, when lightning threatened to tear the sky open, this gentle glow would appear, floating and flickering like a halo. Some swore it was the spirit of Saint Erasmus himself, protector of sailors, come to guide them safely through the tempest. Others feared it meant his soul was about to be claimed by the deep. Even as centuries passed and science named it a plasma discharge, caused by the friction of the storm's electric field, the beauty of it refused to lose its holiness. To those who saw it, it was not a chemical reaction, but a visitation, light made alive by belief. But not all sea lights came with thunder. Some appeared on the calmest nights, when the wind slept and the water lay flat as glass. Christopher Columbus recorded one such sight on his voyage across the Atlantic in 1492, a flickering light on the horizon, distant yet distinct, seen just before the crew spotted land. He wrote that it moved up and down, as though lifted by unseen hands. Was it a fire from a native shore, a natural glow from the waves, or something stranger that drew them forward? History does not answer, but the idea lingers. Perhaps it was not they who discovered, but who were invited. For millennia, sailors and fishermen across cultures have described these silent illuminations. In the Bay of Bengal, mariners spoke of ghost lights that hovered just above the waterline, moving with deliberate grace before fading without trace. Japanese fishermen told of the yumabazu, spirits of the sea whose approach was marked by strange blue flames on the water. In the waters of the North Atlantic, whalers whispered of shining orbs that appeared beneath the surface, following their ships for days at a time before vanishing into the depths. To some, these lights were omens of luck. To others, they were the eyes of the ocean itself, watching, remembering. Science offers gentle explanations: bioluminescent plankton, the chemical shimmer of living seas, static discharges, and electrical mirages. And indeed, the ocean teems with its own light. Tiny creatures invisible by day burst into glowing motion at night, painting the waves in soft turquoise fire. When a boat cuts through such water, its wake gleams like spilled stars. It is one of nature's oldest miracles, an everyday enchantment disguised as biology. Yet even these explanations carry wonder. For if the sea itself glows with life, are we not still surrounded by the mystery our ancestors saw? The dividing line between supernatural and natural is thinner than the surface of the sea. There are stories, too, that resist even the calm comfort of reason. In the early 1800s, a British naval ship reported being followed for hours by two bright globes of light, each moving just above the water's surface, matching the vessel's speed with eerie precision. The lights maintained formation until dawn, then sank into the depths without sound. The captain's log described them as intelligent in movement, though no explanation was offered. In the Pacific, tales persist of luminous disks rising from beneath the waves, what modern minds might call unidentified submersible objects. The sea, vast and secretive, might hide as many mysteries below as the sky hides above. It is tempting to believe that these lights, whether born of biology or something beyond, serve as beacons for lost voyagers. Many shipwreck legends describe a final glow seen by survivors, the last fire, as some called it. In Irish folklore, a lone flame seen upon the waves was the soul of a drowned sailor, guiding others away from the same fate. The Inuit of the Arctic told of spirits traveling between ice and stars, their passage leaving trails of phosphorescence in the dark water. The same glow, seen through different eyes, became faith, warning, memory. The sea is generous that way. It lets us find our own meaning in its mystery. Even the modern sailor, with instruments and satellites to chart every mile, cannot escape the sea's enchantments. Ask any who have crossed the equator on a moonless night, and they will tell you how the waves light up like embers under the hull. It feels alive, breathing softly, as though the ocean is aware of the traveler who disturbs its ancient calm. There is peace in that moment, and a quiet awe, an acknowledgement that for all our progress, we remain small, drifting across an endless blue that has always kept its secrets. The gentle voice of the narrator slows now, carrying the listener deeper into the rhythm of the waves. The lights shimmer, distant yet near, rising and falling like slow, patient breath. Some belong to the creatures of the deep. Others perhaps belong to memories that never faded. The ocean glows because it remembers every ship that crossed, every prayer whispered to the wind, every gaze lifted toward the stars in hope or fear. The same lights that guided ancient sailors still appear from time to time, a reminder that mystery has not left the world. As the scene fades, one can imagine standing at the edge of a quiet shore, watching the black water flicker with faint blue fire. The waves lap gently at the sand, as if telling stories too old for words. Somewhere far out, a light drifts, moving slowly across the horizon, steady, calm, and silent. Perhaps it is a ship. Perhaps it is nothing. Or perhaps it is one of the same strange fires that once led men across oceans, a beacon between sky and sea, whispering softly to those who still look for wonder in the dark. The desert, unlike the sea, is not a place of movement but of stillness. Its silence stretches beyond the horizon, where wind and heat erase all sound and shape. At night, the dunes turn cold and silver beneath a canopy of stars so sharp they seem to pierce the sky itself. Here, under this vast emptiness, people have seen lights, lonely, wandering, impossible lights, that dance across the sand and vanish as if swallowed by the earth. For thousands of years, travelers have crossed these barren places and returned with stories of glowing figures, radiant symbols carved in stone, and fires that burned with no fuel. The desert, for all its silence, has always been a landscape of whispers. In the high plateaus of southern Peru, etched into the ground like messages written to the heavens, lie the Nazca lines, giant figures of animals, spirals, and straight paths stretching for miles across the desert floor. They can only be fully seen from above, their precision impossible to appreciate from ground level. Who then were they meant for? Some scholars say they were astronomical calendars, aligned with the solstices. Others believe there were ceremonial pathways for gods descending from the sky. The idea is both poetic and unsettling. A civilization carving messages so vast that only in aerial I could read them. In the still heat of that landscape, one can almost imagine glowing shapes descending to meet the people who drew those lines, or perhaps simply watching from the stars above. Far across the sands, in the Sahara, the caves of Tasselite in Niger hold paintings older than most written language. Among the depictions of animals and hunters are figures unlike anything found on Earth. Tall, luminous beings with round heads, large eyes, and strange patterns radiating from their faces. They are often shown surrounded by halos of dots and light, as if caught in a shimmer between worlds. Some archaeologists call them spirit dancers, others call them gods. Yet for those who see them with modern eyes, there is something hauntingly familiar about their form, something that feels less mythical and more mechanical. Did the artists of the Sahara witness a ritual, a vision, or a visitation? We cannot say. The silence of the desert keeps its secrets well. In Australia's arid interior, Aboriginal traditions tell of the Wangina, sky beings who came to Earth in ancient times, teaching the people how to live in harmony with the land. Their images, painted on cave walls, show glowing white faces with no mouths, encircled by halos of color. The stories say that when their work was done, the Wangina returned to the clouds, where they still watch, bringing rain when honored and silence when forgotten. To the people who paint them, even today, these are not myths, but ancestors. The sky and the earth are part of the same family, and the light that descends from above is part of the cycle of life itself. The deserts of the American Southwest tell similar tales. The Hopi speak of the Kachinas, spirit messengers from the stars who come to guide and protect humanity. In the cliffs of Chaco Canyon, spirals carved into rock align perfectly with solar and lunar cycles, as though meant to communicate with something beyond the world of dust and wind. At night, strange lights still appear above those same mesas, glowing orbs that drift silently before fading into the horizon. Scientists call them mirages, plasma, or reflected headlights from distant roads. But to the people who live beneath them, they are not illusions. They are visitors, the same watchers who have crossed their skies since the beginning of memory. Every desert has its lights. In Texas, travelers speak of the Marfa lights, brilliant orbs that rise from the earth and hover in the air, splitting, merging, dancing in silence. Scientists have studied them for decades, offering explanations in terms of gases, heat, and reflection, yet none fully capture their rhythm or persistence. In the Australian outback, miners tell of min-min lights, ghostly spheres that chase cars and riders before vanishing without trace. And in the Middle East, Bedouin nomads still tell of jinn lights, flickers that lead travelers astray and disappear when approached. To each culture, the lights are both danger and guide, trickster and messenger, a reflection of the desert itself, beautiful and merciless, endless and alive. There is something about these places that invites the unknown. Perhaps it is the emptiness, the way vast silence amplifies every sound and every thought. When you stand in the desert at night, the line between earth and sky feels thin enough to break. The stars press closer, the air seems to hum, and every flicker of light feels like an encounter. The human mind, deprived of landmarks and noise, begins to see patterns in the void, a movement, a shimmer, a suggestion of life. Yet even if imagination plays its part, there remains a sense that the desert responds to us, that it reflects not just light, but awareness. Archaeologists, scientists, and dreamers have long debated whether the carvings, alignments, and lights of these desolate places are coincidence or communication. The symmetry of ancient structures, the repetition of symbols across continents, the universal awe toward the sky, all of it suggests something shared, something more than myth. The people who live in these harsh lands gave their devotion to what they saw above them, building not temples of gold, but messages of stone and sand. It was not wealth they sought, but connection, a bridge to whatever moved among the stars. The desert, unlike the forest or the sea, gives nothing freely. It demands reverence and patience. Those who cross it learn humility, for there is no sound but wind, no shelter but shadow. And yet, in that vastness, something stirs. Light appears where there should be none, flickering softly, as though the earth itself remembers the fires of the first dawn. The same glow that danced on the horizons of our ancestors still haunts the emptiness today, visible only to those who linger long enough to see it. The narrator's voice slows to a whisper now, like a breeze over sand. The desert breathes, vast and timeless, and above it, the sky shimmers in quiet motion. The figures on the ancient rocks seem almost alive in the moonlight, their eyes glinting faintly, as if reflecting something unseen. Whether these carvings were prayers or memories, they remain messages left for the sky to read. And as we stand before them, still and listening, we might begin to feel what those ancient artists felt, that they were not alone under those stars, and that somewhere in the spaces between light and silence, something vast was watching back. High in the cold, endless dark of the polar regions, the sky comes alive with a beauty so powerful it seems almost alive. Curtains of light ripple silently across the heavens, green, violet, crimson, moving like slow waves in an invisible sea. The aurora. To modern eyes, it is a wonder of nature, an atmospheric ballet of charged particles and magnetic fields. But for most of human history, it was something else entirely. A message, a warning, a visitation from beyond. The people who lived under those dancing lights believed the heavens were speaking, and the language they used was fire. Imagine standing on the frozen tundra thousands of years ago. The air is sharp enough to sting your lungs. The snow glows blue beneath the moon, and above you, the sky itself begins to move. Veils of light unfurl, sweeping across the horizon with silent grace. No sound accompanies their motion, only a low hum of the wind over the ice. For the Inuit and Sami peoples, this spectacle was never random. It was alive. The Inuit said the lights were the spirits of the dead, playing with the skulls of walrus like balls in a celestial game. Others claimed they were the souls of the departed, dancing in celebration of their release from the world. The Sami believed the lights held great power, that to mock or whistle at them could draw their anger and bring misfortune. You had to respect them, speak softly, and watch with reverence. Across the world, in places where the northern lights rarely touched, stories still grew from the whispers of travelers. The Vikings saw in them the reflections of Valkyrie's armor, gleaming as they rode across the night sky to choose the souls of fallen warriors. To them, the lights were divine messengers, signals of glory, death, and destiny. In medieval China, astronomers recorded the same celestial displays, describing dragons of fire dancing above the northern horizon. They believed these were omens from the heavens, messages to emperors, portents of change. Even the ancient Greeks, far to the south, heard tales of northern lights from wanderers and sailors, calling them chariots of the gods blazing through the air. Every culture, distant in land but close in awe, looked up and saw more than mere color. They saw meaning. When scientists finally began to study the aurora, centuries later, their explanations only deepened the wonder. Solar winds colliding with Earth's magnetic field, an invisible dance of particles so small, so far beyond perception, yet capable of painting the entire sky. The thought is humbling. Even with knowledge, the mystery remains. What other invisible forces, unseen yet immense, move through the space around us? The same energy that lights the poles also touches our planet's edge, humming quietly in the atmosphere like the faint rhythm of the cosmos itself. Perhaps ancient people were not wrong to call alive. Legends tell of nights when the aurora descended lower than usual, close enough to touch the tops of trees, to brush against the ice. Hunters spoke of strange sounds, crackling, whispering, faint tones that seemed to come from the lights themselves. Scientists now call it auroral sound, a rare acoustic effect caused by electrical discharges, but to those who heard it first, it was a voice. It spoke not in words, but in feeling, a language of awe and reverence. Some shamans claimed they could hear messages in that faint song, prophecies about the changing of seasons or the movement of spirits. It was a dialogue between the earth and the stars, fleeting but profound. There are accounts, too, of the lights behaving in ways that defy even our modern understanding. In 1938, across Europe, a blood-red aurora filled the sky so vividly that people thought the world was on fire. In England, fire brigades rushed to the countryside, believing distant cities were burning. In Italy and Spain, people prayed in the streets, convinced it was the end of days. Months later, war broke out. A coincidence, perhaps, but one that has never been forgotten. In the Arctic, explorers described curtains of light that seemed to follow their camps, bending and shifting as though aware of human presence. Some even swore they saw figures within the glow, humanoid shapes, luminous outlines that shimmered before dissolving into the night. Whether imagination, exhaustion, or something stranger, such stories linger like faint echoes under the green veil of the aurora. In recent decades, pilots and scientists working near the poles have reported peculiar luminous phenomena beyond the aurora itself. Spherical lights that hover motionless at high altitude or move against the wind. Streaks of white or blue light that flash horizontally across the horizon. Even radiant orbs that seem to emerge from the aurora and drift away into the darkness. Some are explained as ball lightning, others as reflections or satellites. But not all fit the data. There are moments, fleeting but real, where the lights behave like something sentient, observing, reacting, vanishing the instant they are noticed. The boundary between natural and unknown seems to blur, as if the aurora itself hides other presences within its dance. It is easy to see why early civilizations linked these lights to beings from beyond. They are beautiful, yes, but also unsettling, a reminder of forces far larger than humanity. Standing beneath them, one feels both seen and insignificant. The entire sky becomes a moving mirror of color, a pulse of energy from a distant sun reaching across millions of miles to touch our fragile world. In that glow, every human story feels small yet sacred, every breath a spark beneath the same celestial fire that lit the first nights of creation. Imagine lying in the snow, wrapped in silence, watching the heavens shift like living silk. The green fades to violet, the violet deepens to crimson, then the whole sky darkens again. The wind hums through the trees, and somewhere, the faint hiss of the aurora continues, a whisper too delicate to capture. In that moment, time dissolves. You are not here or now, but everywhere at once, part of the same mystery that the first humans felt when they lifted their eyes to the sky. As the scene closes, the lights fade, leaving only the faint shimmer of starlight over the frozen ground. The polar night returns, still and immense, yet somehow warmer for what has shown. The people who live under these skies still tell their children not to whistle when the lights appear, not out of fear, but respect. For they know that in this quiet, cold world, the boundary between heaven and earth is only a breath thick. And somewhere in the dark, the lights continue their silent watch, ancient, endless, and alive. In the soft mist of the English countryside, where stone circles rise like sentinels from another age, there are whispers of a power that still hums beneath the soil. Fields of green roll under low skies, and in certain seasons, when the wind carries a strange stillness, lights appear above the horizon. They hover, drift, and vanish, as though searching for something lost. To the casual observer, they're tricks of the eye, illusions born of fog and moonlight. But to those who know the old stories, they are echoes of ancient rituals, the remnants of a bond once forged between humankind and the stars. Among the mist and rain, few places hold as much quiet mystery as the standing stones, Stonehenge, Avebury, Callanish. These rings of granite and limestone have watched millennia pass, their purpose still only half understood. Archaeologists tell us they mark celestial alignments, the rising of the solstice sun, the movements of the moon. But standing among them at dawn, when fog wraps each pillar like a shroud and light filters through the gaps, one cannot help but feel that something greater lingers. The stones hum faintly with the wind, and for a moment, the air feels charged, as though the world itself remembers what the people who built these monuments once knew. Legends say the stones are alive, that they shift and breathe when no one watches. In folklore, they were giants turned to rock by sunlight, guardians who once moved beneath the stars. But deeper still runs another theory, one not of myth, but of lost science, that these sites were built as channels of energy, places where heaven and earth met through unseen forces. Some have claimed that at certain times of year, the ground beneath Stonehenge glows faintly, as if magnetized by something above. Farmers in the nearby plains have reported circular patches of flattened crops, perfect in symmetry, appearing overnight. To the rational mind, they are weather phenomena, wind eddies, or human mischief. But to the dreamer, they are footprints of the same sky-born visitors once honored by the stones. Across the British Isles, similar lights have appeared for centuries. The will-o'-the-wisp, a floating blue flame that drifts over marshes, has long been part of local lore. Travelers told of following these flickering orbs, only to find themselves lost in bogs or led to forgotten ruins. In medieval accounts, the lights were believed to be mischievous spirits, souls trapped between worlds. Yet the same descriptions, glowing orbs moving silently through the air, appear again and again, not just in England, but across the world. The same shape, the same behavior, recurring across continents and eras. It suggests that whatever the will-o'-the-wisp truly is, it belongs not only to folklore, but to the shared human experience of the unexplained. The Celts spoke of Ow's Sea, the shining ones, beings from the other world who crossed into ours through mounds, mist, and moonlight. The entrances to their realms were said to open on certain nights of the year, when the veil between worlds grew thin. The lights seen on these nights were thought to be their torches, flickering in the distance as they passed through invisible doorways. Some believe these beings came not from underground but from the sky itself, descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, who arrived in ships that glowed like fire before vanishing into clouds. These stories, older than written history, intertwine the heavens with the earth in a way that feels timeless, as if the lights and the land have always been in conversation. And then there are the carvings, spirals, circles, radiating suns, etched into stones across Britain and Ireland. Some are thousands of years old, yet they mirror patterns seen in places as far apart as Peru and Scandinavia. Their meaning remains a mystery. Were they maps of the stars, messages to unseen watchers, or records of something witnessed in the skies long ago? When rain seeps into their grooves, the shapes seem to glow, reflecting light in a way that feels deliberate. Standing before them, it's easy to imagine ancient hands tracing these symbols by firelight, trying to preserve the memory of something wondrous, something they could not explain. In the late 19th century, farmers and travelers began to report strange, glowing shapes above the countryside, pale discs that appeared soundless, moving in patterns no known craft could follow. The reports multiplied throughout the 20th century, blending modern observation with ancient awe. Near Stonehenge itself, witnesses described silent lights descending toward the monument, illuminating the stones before fading away. Some dismissed these as aircraft. Others insisted they were too silent, too smooth, too deliberate. And so the mystery deepened. Could the same forces that drew our ancestors to raise these stones still linger, still visit, still watch? Yet there is a softer explanation too, one that belongs to the earth itself. The chalky soil of southern England holds a faint luminescence when struck by certain energies. Magnetic lines run beneath the ground, channels that hum with electrical charge. Scientists have speculated that fluctuations in these fields could produce glowing effects in the air, a natural response of the planet's pulse to the tension of its crust. If true, the builders of the megaliths might have sensed this energy, chosen their sacred sites not by chance, but by intuition. Perhaps they built where the Earth's invisible veins met, where the natural and the cosmic intertwined. It is comforting, in a way, to imagine that the mystery has always been there, not above us, but within the land itself. The stones, the lights, the fields, they are chapters of the same ancient story, written not in words but in resonance. When night falls and mist gathers over the plains, that story breathes again. The lights appear, faint at first, then bright, gliding above the landscape as though retracing old paths. They drift past the monoliths, past the rivers and ruins, before dissolving into the horizon. No one can say what they are. Spirits, science, or something in between, it doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling they leave behind. The quiet certainty that we are still part of a mystery too large to name. As dawn approaches, the mist begins to fade. The stones stand silent, catching the first pale glow of morning. The fields are still, the air calm. And yet, somewhere deep within the soil, the old energy hums, patient and unbroken. The sky above remains vast and expectant, as if waiting for the next moment when light will meet Earth again and the ancient conversation between them will resume. The narrator's voice softens to a near whisper, inviting sleep, inviting wonder. The stones, the lights, the stories, they endure, waiting quietly for the curious to return and listen once more. In the deep jungles and sunlit plateaus of South America, where the air hums with life and ancient stone cities rise out of the green like forgotten dreams, there lingers a presence that feels older than civilization itself. The mountains breathe mist, rivers glimmer like veins of light, and somewhere amid that vastness are stories of beings who descended from the sky, taught humanity the secrets of knowledge, and then vanished again into the clouds. The people of these lands, Inca, Maya, Aztec, and countless others whose names history has barely preserved, did not speak of gods in abstract forms. They spoke of visitors, of luminous beings, of teachers who came from above, and they left behind monuments that still whisper of those encounters. High in the Andes, above the thin line where life can barely hold on, sits the ancient city of Tiwanaku. Its stones weigh hundreds of tons, yet they fit together with precision so fine that even a blade cannot pass between them. How such feats were accomplished with the tools of the age remains one of archaeology's quiet mysteries. Among the ruins stands the Gateway of the Sun, a massive carved portal decorated with figures that seem to radiate beams of light. The central figure, believed to be the god Viracocha, is said to have descended from the heavens during a time of darkness to bring order to the world. According to Incan tradition, he taught the people to build, to cultivate the land, and to honor the stars. Then, when his work was done, he rose again into the sky. The legends do not speak of metaphor, but of direction. He came from above and returned there. Further north, in the jungles of Central America, the Maya built cities aligned with astronomical precision. The temple at Chichen Itza, known as El Castillo, is not merely an architectural wonder. It is a calendar carved in stone. On the equinoxes, the shadow of the serpent god Kukulkan appears along its steps, a living illusion created by sunlight and geometry. The Mayas' knowledge of celestial cycles was so exact that they could predict eclipses centuries in advance. How they acquired such understanding has puzzled historians for generations. They said their knowledge was a gift from the gods who came down on pillars of light, beings they called those who descend from the sky. When Spanish chroniclers arrived, they were astonished at how literal these stories seemed. To the Maya, the divine did not dwell in unseen heavens, but had walked among them, luminous and tangible. In the highlands of Peru, the Nazca once traced lines and figures across the desert that can only be seen from the air, hummingbirds, monkeys, and geometric pathways stretching for miles. Modern theories suggest they were ritual walkways or astronomical markers, but others have wondered if they were meant as messages to sky dwellers, visible only to those who could look down upon them. The Nazca built no tall towers, no high vantage points from which these drawings could be appreciated. They did not need to. The watchers, they believed, were above. There's a recurring pattern in these myths, a shared memory that crosses cultures and centuries. The Aztecs, too, spoke of gods descending in brilliant light. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, was said to have arrived in a radiant glow, teaching wisdom and peace before departing across the sea with a promise to return. In Colombia, legends of the Muisca describe Bachica, a bearded, luminous man who descended from the sky on a rainbow to save humanity from a flood. And across the continent, cave paintings and stone carvings depict beings with round helmets, large eyes, and halos of light surrounding their heads. To ancient people, these were deities. To modern eyes, they resemble something different, something eerily familiar. It would be easy to dismiss these parallels as coincidence, yet the similarities stretch too far and too wide to ignore. Civilizations separated by mountains, rivers, and centuries all describe encounters with luminous beings who came from the sky, imparted knowledge, and promised to return. They built pyramids aligned with the stars, tracked celestial movements with mathematical perfection, and recorded events that sound strikingly like aerial visitations. It is as if the same story echoed through different tongues, the same memory, refracted through culture and time. Of course, science offers its own explanations. The builders of these civilizations were astronomers and engineers of remarkable skill. Their gods of light may have been metaphors for wisdom, their carvings representations of the sun's life-giving force. Human imagination, after all, tends to look upward for inspiration. But even as we study their achievements with modern tools, something in their stories refuses to fade. There's a sense that they knew something we have forgotten, that their connection to the sky was not symbolic but experiential. In the modern age, strange reports have continued to emerge from these same regions. Pilots flying over the Andes have reported glowing discs maneuvering through the clouds with impossible speed. Archaeologists camping near ancient ruins have witnessed unexplained lights hovering silently before vanishing into thin air. And at night, when the moon rises over the peaks, locals still tell tales of the guardians of the mountains, brilliant orbs that appear when the air grows still, watching, waiting. The Andean people still honor Viracocha in their ceremonies, calling upon him as the creator who came from the sea and the sky. In their songs, he is not a distant god, but a presence who walks the earth, cloaked in light. They leave offerings at the ancient stones, whispering prayers into the wind, as if the old connection still lingers. For them, the past is not dead. It breathes in the stones, in the rivers, in the thin air of the mountains. Perhaps that is the true power of these myths. Not whether they are literally true, but the way they connect the human spirit to something vast and mysterious. The same stars that guided the ancient builders still burn above us, unchanged. The same patterns appear in the sky. The same lights return to the same mountains. Time moves, but the mystery remains. As the narrator's voice slows, the listener is guided deeper into the stillness of the high Andes. Wind moves softly through the ruins, brushing against the stones like the breath of memory. The night sky opens wide, filled with stars so bright they seem alive. Somewhere far above, perhaps beyond even sight, something ancient stirs, a memory, a watcher, or just the quiet hum of the universe itself. The old stories return like a lullaby, the teachers of light, the visitors from the sky, the promise that one day they will return. And as the mist settles and the stars begin to fade, the mountains keep their silence, holding within their stone the echoes of that forgotten meeting between earth and heaven. Across the seas and deserts, the frozen poles, and the rolling hills of Europe, there are patterns that repeat, whispering a story older than any single culture, older than recorded history itself. It is the story of light descending from the sky, guiding, teaching, warning, or merely watching. And yet, sometimes it moves closer to home, appearing where ordinary humans can see it, touching lives in ways that defy explanation. These are the accounts of strange lights, inexplicable phenomena, and fleeting visitations that bridge the gap between ancient myth and modern mystery. They're the glimpses of the impossible that keep us awake at night, staring at the sky and wondering what, or who, is out there. Consider the forests of northern Europe, where mist drifts through pine and oak, and the moon filters through branches like silver rain. Here, travelers have reported glowing orbs, small but persistent, moving among the trees. Some hover silently, others dart like quicksilver, weaving between trunks in ways no animal could replicate. In Scandinavian folklore, these were called huldra lights, spirits of the forest, guiding or misleading travelers depending on their intent. The Norse spoke of the draugr, restless souls illuminated by their own ghostly flame. Modern visitors often dismiss them as fireflies, reflections, or optical illusions. Yet the descriptions are too consistent, too specific, too insistent to ignore. There's a rhythm to their movement, a pattern that feels intelligent, deliberate, as if the lights themselves were aware of being watched. In the American Midwest, the legend of the Paulding Light in Michigan persists much the same way. Witnesses describe a solitary orb, glowing white, red, or yellow, appearing on a lonely stretch of road, sometimes hovering, sometimes moving, never touching the earth. Scholars have investigated, suggesting automobile headlights, atmospheric phenomena, or distant campfires as causes. Yet the light persists, night after night, year after year, often behaving in ways that defy easy explanation. Travelers swear it moves in response to their presence, fades when approached too closely, or seems to retreat if followed. Here, like in the deserts of Peru or the forests of Norway, the line between natural occurrence and something otherworldly blurs. Throughout history, humanity has assigned meaning to such lights. In some cases, they were guides, illuminating paths through dangerous terrain, warning of storms, or marking sacred places. In others, they were omens, silent messengers of fortune or disaster. Some appear in the records of explorers and sailors, bright discs hovering over ship decks, strange flares following vessels for days, lights appearing in perfect synchronization across vast distances. Ancient chroniclers and modern observers alike describe the same phenomena. Orbs of color, moving without sound, sometimes splitting into multiple spheres, sometimes merging into one. Across centuries, the form remains hauntingly similar, as if a single phenomenon stretches its influence over time. Even cities, normally suffused with artificial light, have their own stories of the inexplicable. Residents of urban areas have reported glowing objects that descend silently, often appearing in parks, rivers, or rooftops, visible for only a few moments before vanishing. In the early 20th century, newspapers chronicled tales of fiery globes over London, New York, and Tokyo, described by multiple witnesses at the same time. Skeptics offered explanations, balloons, airplanes, reflections, but many of the reports included precise details, movement patterns, and behaviors inconsistent with known technology. There's a quality to these lights that defies categorization. They're alive in some sense, responding to the environment, aware of observers, and always fleeting. Across continents and centuries, there's a pattern. Lights often appear at sites already marked by human attention or significance. Ancient temples, sacred stones, and ceremonial grounds often coincide with modern sightings. Could this be coincidence, or is there an invisible thread connecting our construction, our history, and these phenomena? In China, lights have been reported above pyramidal burial mounds. In Egypt, above ancient temples aligned with the stars. Across Europe, above megaliths and henges, similar orbs appear, moving silently before disappearing into the night. Perhaps the lights are drawn to places of human energy, consciousness, or devotion, connecting the mortal and the unknown in ways we do not yet understand. What makes these phenomena so compelling is not just their visual strangeness, but the emotional response they provoke. Witnesses often describe an overwhelming sense of being watched, a quiet awe, and a strange calm mixed with unease. There is no danger, yet no comfort either. It is as though something vast, intelligent, and entirely alien is observing us, choosing when and how to reveal itself. The experience lingers long after the light fades, etched into memory, stories, and sometimes art. Humanity seems compelled to remember these encounters, to pass them along in whispers or journals, ensuring that the mystery endures. The pattern of lights also intersects with moments of historical significance. Battles, migrations, natural disasters, and discoveries are often accompanied in the record by sightings of unusual phenomena, streaks of fire, hovering orbs, and luminous disks that appear as if to bear witness. Chroniclers often describe them in reverent or fearful tones, suggesting an intelligence behind the occurrences. Were these simply coincidences, atmospheric oddities, or something more deliberate, guiding or observing the flow of human events? The question lingers, unanswered, as it has for centuries. In reflecting upon all these sightings, urban, rural, ancient, and modern, a striking commonality emerges. The lights exist in liminal spaces. They appear at the boundaries between land and sky, water and earth, the known and the unknown. They emerge where human perception is heightened, on quiet roads, atop remote hills, in deserts, forests, and mountains. They do not announce themselves with sound or demand attention, yet those who see them cannot ignore their presence. They are subtle, fleeting, and yet unforgettable, a whisper of mystery in a world increasingly explained. As the narrator's voice softens, one imagines these lights drifting across landscapes, unnoticed by some, embraced by others, carrying stories from ancient times into the present. They bridge the gap between myth and reality, past and present, known and unknown. Perhaps they're the same phenomena that inspired the first stories of gods descending, of luminous teachers, of watchers in the sky. Or perhaps there's something entirely new, quietly reminding us that the universe holds more than we can yet understand. The section closes in quiet contemplation, letting the listener drift along with the light itself. A solitary orb hovers just beyond perception, then flickers and fades. Its presence is gentle, almost protective, yet undeniably otherworldly. It is a reminder that the world is not as empty as it seems, that even in our modern lives, the ancient awe for the unknown endures. And as the night deepens, the mind relaxes, carrying the vision of the light across landscapes, seas, and centuries, a companion for dreams yet to come. Across deserts, mountains, forests, and seas, there's a quiet thread connecting humanity's earliest experiences with light in the sky to the reports of the modern era. Some of the most intriguing accounts come from the golden age of exploration, when humans ventured into lands uncharted by Western eyes and recorded phenomena that seemed to defy natural explanation. Sailors, traders, and explorers spoke of luminous disks above their ships, glowing figures on distant horizons, and flares of light that appeared without heat or sound. These stories were carefully documented, written down in logs, journals, and letters, often treated with reverence or fear. They formed a tapestry that links the ancient myths of gods descending from the heavens with sightings that continue to baffle today's scientists. The Pacific Ocean has long been a corridor of mystery. Polynesian navigators described strange lights guiding their canoes through thousands of miles of open water, often appearing at precise points along their routes. Sometimes these were described as small, glowing orbs hovering above the waves. Other times as elongated streaks of brilliance stretching across the horizon. To the Polynesians, these lights were not merely navigation aids. They were signs of ancestral spirits, watching over travelers, ensuring safe passage, and maintaining a connection between the human and spiritual realms. Even as modern instruments map the currents and celestial positions, the traditional stories retain a sense of awe that technical explanation alone cannot diminish. In the 15th and 16th centuries, European explorers encountered phenomena that were both terrifying and mesmerizing. Ships crossing the Atlantic recorded strange lights hovering over the water at night. Some reports describe luminous shapes rising from the ocean as if alive, darting across the waves and disappearing instantly. Explorers such as Columbus and Magellan documented these sightings in their logs, often noting the profound effect the lights had on their crew. Sailors whispered of sea fire and sky sparks, uncertain whether to fear or revere the lights. While some historians have suggested that bioluminescent organisms or atmospheric reflections could explain these sightings, the detailed movements, colors, and persistence described in logs suggest that more may have been at play than natural phenomena alone. Land expeditions were no less mysterious. In the dense jungles of South America, early explorers reported lights among the treetops at night, dancing in patterns that seemed to observe their movements. In North Africa, desert caravans recorded ghostly illuminations over dunes and oases, often interpreted as spirits guiding or misleading the travelers. Some lights appeared to move deliberately, following the observers without approaching, hovering just at the edge of vision before vanishing entirely. These accounts mirror ancient mythologies of luminous visitors from the heavens, suggesting a continuity of experience across time and geography. The 19th century brought new technology, but the phenomenon did not fade. Telegraph operators, railway workers, and astronomers recorded luminous anomalies in the sky, flashes, orbs, and streaks of light, documented in scientific journals and newspapers. Even as observers sought to rationalize the phenomena with known principles of electricity and atmospheric science, many accounts resisted neat explanation. Some lights moved with intent, appearing in formations or patterns inconsistent with natural or mechanical origins. Others hovered in silence for hours, disappearing as if obeying some unseen rule. Observers often described an eerie feeling of awareness, as though the lights themselves were cognizant of the human gaze. Explorers' tales also reveal an interplay between fear and fascination. Reports from polar expeditions frequently include luminous phenomena alongside descriptions of extreme isolation. The aurora borealis, for example, was often witnessed alongside smaller, inexplicable orbs that moved independently of the northern lights. Observers wrote of glowing shapes emerging from the ice or sky, following sleds or boats, retreating when approached too closely. The cold, the silence, and the extreme conditions heightened perception, creating encounters that were at once mystical and terrifying. Such experiences became recorded lore, passed down in journals, letters, and later recounted in memoirs, bridging the personal and historical dimensions of these mysteries. Across centuries, these explorer accounts reveal a recurring pattern. Lights appear at the boundaries of the known, marking thresholds where humans venture into uncertainty. At sea, in deserts, in mountains, or in polar ice, they emerge where perception is heightened, where survival depends on observation, and where the line between imagination and reality blurs. Witnesses consistently describe orbs, streaks, or shapes that move with intention, sometimes responding to human presence, sometimes vanishing without trace. The echoes of ancient myths, of gods descending in light, of teachers visiting from the sky, persist in these modern narratives. It is as if the same phenomena that inspired the first civilizations to gaze upward continue to follow us, silently observing and reminding us of the unknown. Even today, the accounts of early explorers resonate with modern UFO sightings. The glowing disks, hovering spheres, and streaking lights documented centuries ago are strikingly similar to contemporary reports. While some have sought to dismiss them as misinterpretations of celestial or atmospheric events, their recurrence across time, space, and cultures challenges simple explanations. The continuity of these phenomena suggests a larger pattern, one that humanity has noticed since its earliest voyages, both terrestrial and celestial. The beauty of these historical accounts lies not only in their strangeness, but in the way they connect us to our ancestors. They remind us that humans have always looked up with wonder, recorded what they could not fully explain, and tried to make sense of the light that appears just beyond understanding. There's a poetic rhythm to it. Ancient myths, medieval chronicles, explorers' logs, and modern sightings all form a continuum. It is a story of curiosity, reverence, and mystery, written across time in both word and memory. As the narrator's voice slows, the listener is invited to drift along with the explorers, moving silently across oceans, deserts, and jungles. The glowing orbs and streaks of light appear and vanish, following the trails of those who dare to step beyond the familiar. There is no rush, no danger, only the gentle pull of wonder, the sense that the world is far more vast and mysterious than our eyes alone can perceive. In these moments, the past and present merge, leaving only the quiet question: what is watching from the light, and why does it still follow us across centuries and across the farthest reaches of our world? Across centuries and continents, the sky has always been a canvas of mystery, where human imagination meets phenomena that defy easy explanation. Some of the most compelling encounters occur in places already steeped in history, sites of ancient civilizations, sacred grounds, and locations long associated with the unknown. It is in these spaces where human activity intersects with geography and the heavens that strange lights seem drawn, appearing with a rhythm that defies coincidence. Travelers, scientists, and casual observers alike have documented these luminous phenomena, hovering orbs, streaks of light, and radiant shapes that vanish as suddenly as they arrive. They are silent witnesses to our world, invisible yet present, guiding, observing, or merely reminding us of forces beyond our comprehension. In the mountains of Tibet, monasteries perch upon cliffs, overlooking valleys that stretch into mist and sky. Pilgrims have long described orbs of light rising from the peaks, moving slowly along the horizon before disappearing into clouds. Monks speak of them as manifestations of celestial beings, guardians of the sacred land who maintain balance between heaven and earth. Some say the lights are spirits of previous teachers, returning to guide the living. Western scientists have observed the same phenomena, recording unexplained luminous movements above these remote peaks, but they cannot fully account for the intelligence implied by the light's deliberate trajectories. The descriptions align uncannily with stories of sky visitors across other cultures, suggesting a universal pattern: light as a bridge between the mortal and the unknown. In the vast deserts of Arabia, Bedouin tribes speak of glowing orbs, jinn lights, that appear above the sand, sometimes leading travelers safely to water, sometimes luring them off course. Travelers over centuries have consistently described the lights as floating silently, moving with intention, and vanishing without trace. To the people of the desert, these lights are alive, aware of human presence, and worthy of both respect and caution. Scientists often attribute them to mirages, atmospheric refraction, or electrical phenomena. Yet the persistence of eyewitness accounts, combined with the similarity across cultures, suggests there is more to the story than mere natural explanation. Here again, the desert and sky interact in a quiet, mysterious dialogue that humans have long attempted to interpret. Even in modern cities, where artificial illumination dominates, the phenomenon persists. Observers report glowing spheres drifting over rivers, parks, and rooftops, silent, deliberate, and fleeting. The contemporary accounts mirror those recorded in historical logs, hovering, splitting into multiple lights, reacting to observers, or moving in ways inconsistent with known technology. These encounters remind us that the extraordinary is not confined to remote landscapes. The same mystery can appear at the edges of our daily experience. When viewed in this light, the line between ancient myth and modern observation begins to blur, suggesting that the phenomena recorded by our ancestors may continue to manifest, unchanged in nature, though evolving in context. Throughout history, these lights have often coincided with human gatherings, rituals, or constructions aligned with the heavens. Stone circles, pyramids, temples, and ceremonial grounds frequently occupy the same locations where modern sightings occur. Perhaps the builders of these sites sense the invisible energies that still attract luminous phenomena today, or perhaps the lights are drawn to areas of human focus, consciousness, and devotion. In either case, the pattern is striking. Light appears where humans engage deeply with their environment and the cosmos, creating a subtle connection across time between observer and observed. Accounts from explorers, pilots, and even astronauts reinforce this sense of continuity. Luminous objects have been reported following ships across oceans, hovering above mountains, and appearing unexpectedly in remote regions. Witnesses consistently describe a quality of intelligence in the light's movement: hesitation, observation, retreat, and deliberate approach. This behavior echoes the experiences of ancient civilizations, reinforcing the possibility that the lights are not purely atmospheric or optical phenomena, but perhaps something more, sentient, patient, and unbound by time. The phenomenon's consistency across geography and era hints at a deep, underlying pattern. Europe, Asia, Africa, the Americas, all continents bear witness to these lights. From the megalithic structures of the British Isles to the Andean peaks, from the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of Central America, luminous phenomena appear in similar form and behavior. Cultures separated by oceans and millennia describe hovering orbs, streaks of brilliance, and lights that respond to human presence. Whether interpreted as spirits, deities, extraterrestrials, or natural anomalies, the commonality is undeniable. Humans everywhere have perceived these lights, and they have left traces of their wonder in stories, monuments, and observation logs. Even the scientific lens cannot fully erase the awe these lights inspire. Researchers catalog bioluminescence, atmospheric reflections, and plasma phenomena, yet many accounts elude categorization. Some lights move against wind, hover silently, or split and merge in impossible ways. They appear in locations where no natural explanation seems sufficient, sometimes following humans or shifting direction in patterns that suggest awareness. While skeptics may label these occurrences as misperception, the weight of consistent documentation across centuries challenges simple dismissal. These lights occupy liminal space between earth and sky, natural and supernatural, known and unknown. They remind humanity that perception is both fragile and expansive. What we see depends on attention, belief, and openness to the extraordinary. Whether they are conscious, natural, or something entirely beyond comprehension, they persist as subtle reminders of the vastness of reality and the mysteries that inhabit it. They are not aggressive or malevolent, but quiet, patient, and observant, passing through our perception as if measuring, learning, or remembering. As the night deepens, the narrator invites the listener to imagine standing beneath one of these lights, a glowing orb, silent and deliberate, hovering just beyond reach. The air is still, the landscape calm, and the light moves with subtle intent, neither threatening nor retreating. It is both ordinary and impossible, a presence that challenges understanding while offering quiet awe. In this moment, time seems to pause, and the connection between observer and phenomenon becomes palpable, intimate, and timeless. Ultimately, these lights are a bridge between past and present, ancient myth and modern experience, the human and the unknown. They invite contemplation rather than conclusion, curiosity rather than certainty. And as the listener drifts towards sleep, they linger in imagination, a gentle reminder that the world holds mysteries both wondrous and profound, waiting quietly just beyond the edge of perception. High above the earth, where the sky opens into a vast expanse of stars, there exists a quiet hum of mystery that has captivated human imagination for millennia. Across civilizations, epochs, and continents, the heavens have served as both guide and enigma, a place where light and shadow converge in patterns we can see but cannot fully grasp. Among the stars and beyond, humans have always sensed presences, beings, movements, and phenomena that seem to operate according to a logic beyond our comprehension. From ancient temples aligned with celestial bodies to the glowing orbs that follow modern travelers, the narrative is remarkably consistent. The sky is alive with phenomena that invite attention, curiosity, and reverence. In the highlands of Mongolia, nomadic tribes have long told of lights descending from the sky in the dark of night. They call them the Tungri lights, manifestations of celestial spirits, guardians of the land who watch over travelers and herd alike. The lights are described as luminous disks or streaks, moving deliberately along the horizon, sometimes pausing to hover, as if considering their next movement. Western scientists observing the region in recent decades have recorded similar phenomena using long-exposure photography and infrared instruments. The movements of these lights, often independent of wind and terrain, suggest intelligence in motion. Whether interpreted as spirits, unknown natural phenomena, or extraterrestrial visitors, they echo the same accounts recorded across the world for centuries. In the Himalayan mountains, monks speak of beings who descend from the skies in brilliant light, teaching knowledge and spiritual practices. These luminous figures appear rarely, often accompanying natural phenomena, meteor showers, auroras, or sudden flashes of brightness. They are not intrusive. Rather, they seem to observe, to guide subtly, or to leave messages in forms of light and geometry. Ancient scriptures and oral traditions recount similar visitations, describing beings with radiant auras and otherworldly presences. Modern climbers and researchers occasionally witness inexplicable lights, moving across peaks or hovering above glaciers, reinforcing the continuity between myth and observation. The night sky over North America has inspired its own stories of visitors and light. Indigenous peoples describe beings of radiance descending from the stars, teaching agriculture, astronomy, and survival skills. Some are depicted in petroglyphs, showing humanoid forms with radiant heads or halos, often accompanied by objects that suggest flight. These depictions date back thousands of years, yet their consistency with modern reports of luminous, hovering objects is remarkable. Sightings from pilots, park rangers, and hikers often describe behaviors that suggest awareness and deliberate movement, patterns that closely resemble the descriptions in ancient petroglyphs and myths. Even in urban environments, lights continue to appear in ways that cannot be fully explained. Observers in cities across Europe, Asia, and the Americas have reported hovering orbs, streaking lights, and formations moving independently of known aircraft or atmospheric conditions. Some appear briefly, vanishing before instruments can record them, while others linger, casting reflections on buildings, rivers, or streets. Eyewitnesses consistently describe a sense of intelligence behind the movement. The lights pause, observe, and sometimes retreat as if aware of human attention. The behavior mirrors descriptions from ancient civilizations, linking modern sightings to an enduring pattern that transcends time and geography. Across all of these accounts, a theme emerges: the lights are not random. They often appear at places and times of significance: mountain peaks, deserts, ancient ruins, and sacred sites. They appear in moments of human observation and ritual, suggesting an interaction that is subtle but deliberate. Some may be natural phenomena misunderstood. Others may reflect consciousness beyond our understanding. Regardless, the lights continue to serve as markers of mystery, bridging the known and the unknown, the mortal and the divine, the earthbound and the celestial. In some cases, the lights seem to communicate through movement and timing. Patterns are reported repeatedly across cultures, hovering in place, splitting into multiple spheres, merging, and then fading without trace. These movements often defy gravity and known physics, yet they follow discernible patterns that suggest observation or intent. Witnesses frequently report a sense of being watched, not threatened, but acknowledged. This consistent impression of intelligence challenges purely scientific explanations and evokes the same awe and reverence found in ancient myths and oral traditions. Perhaps most striking is the continuity across time and space. From the highlands of Mongolia to the jungles of South America, from the deserts of Arabia to the frozen Arctic, luminous phenomena appear with striking similarity. The shapes, behaviors, and effects on human perception echo one another, suggesting that these occurrences are not isolated incidents, but part of a global, timeless pattern. The shared human experience of lights descending from the sky bridges cultures and centuries, linking the earliest civilizations to modern observers in a subtle but profound continuum. The narrator's voice slows, inviting the listener to drift upward with the gaze, following the imagined movement of these lights across mountains, deserts, forests, and oceans. They hover just beyond sight, tracing paths invisible to all but the most attentive eye. Each flicker, each pause, carries the weight of centuries of observation, curiosity, and wonder. They are guides, observers, or simply witnesses, silent and patient, moving through the fabric of our world without disturbance. As sleep draws near, the lights continue their journey, moving through the sky like whispers of history itself. They are gentle reminders of the unknown, of the vastness beyond human comprehension, and of the enduring mystery that has captured imagination since the dawn of civilization. Watching from afar, they offer quiet reflection. For every light that appears, there is a story, a memory, a question, and a connection that spans time, space, and the human heart. The sky, vast and infinite, becomes a theater of wonder, carrying secrets and stories in luminous motion, inviting the listener to drift gently into the embrace of night. Across the ages, humanity has looked upward, tracing the arcs of stars, the paths of planets, and the fleeting glimmers of lights that cannot be explained. There's a quiet continuity to these experiences, a thread that weaves through deserts, mountains, jungles, oceans, and polar ice alike. From the earliest stone carvings to modern eyewitness accounts, the pattern is consistent. Luminous phenomena appear where the human gaze is attentive, where curiosity meets reverence, and where imagination opens the mind to possibilities beyond the ordinary. These lights, whether natural, supernatural, or something entirely unknown, bridge the gap between what we know and what we long to understand. In the deserts of Africa and Arabia, lights still drift over dunes and plateaus, echoing the same stories told by travelers millennia ago. They hover over oases, trace invisible paths across the sand, and vanish when approached too closely. Tribes speak of spirits, guardians, and celestial beings, passing their knowledge orally through generations. In the highlands of South America, the glow of a mysterious orb over a mountaintop or the sudden illumination of ancient ruins mirrors the legends of gods descending from the sky to teach, guide, or warn. Across continents, from the stone circles of Europe to the forests of North America, glowing shapes appear where human attention is focused, leaving behind no proof, only memory and awe. Even modern technology cannot fully capture these phenomena. Cameras, satellites, and sensors often fail to record what the human eye perceives, as if the lights exist partly in a threshold between the physical and the perceptual. Pilots and hikers report glowing spheres that move independently, respond to observers, or vanish entirely without a trace. Scientists suggest atmospheric refraction, electrical discharges, or optical illusions, but no single explanation account for the consistency of form, movement, and behavior over centuries. Each sighting, whether ancient or contemporary, adds to a tapestry of mystery that refuses to unravel completely. Perhaps the most compelling aspect is the emotional and psychological resonance these lights evoke. Witnesses describe feelings of awe, reverence, curiosity, and a profound sense of connection to something greater than themselves. Unlike ordinary phenomena, these lights demand attention, inviting quiet contemplation rather than immediate analysis. They bridge the human and the unknown, the seen and the unseen, the finite and the infinite. In that sense, they're more than visual spectacles. They're experiences that touch the soul, lingering long after the light has disappeared. Across history, cultures have recorded these encounters in myth, art, and ritual. The Inca and Maya depicted radiant beings in stone and codices. The Norse spoke of spirits in the northern lights. The Aboriginal Australians painted luminous figures on rock walls. The Celts carved spirals and circles that mirrored celestial movements. These stories are not mere coincidences. They're the echoes of a shared human awareness, a recognition that the sky holds mysteries beyond comprehension, and that sometimes those mysteries choose to reveal themselves in light. In the stillness of night, the lights continue their silent journey. They drift over mountains, glide across deserts, hover above oceans, and sweep across forests. They come without warning, leaving no footprint, no sound, no immediate explanation. To those who observe, they're both a question and an answer, a reminder that the universe is alive with phenomena we may never fully understand. They connect us with the past, bridging ancient civilizations and modern humanity through the shared experience of witnessing the inexplicable. There is a subtle lesson in their presence. The lights encourage patience, curiosity, and humility. They remind us that human understanding is limited, that not all can be measured or classified, and that wonder is as vital to our existence as knowledge. By observing these phenomena, we participate in a dialogue that spans centuries, a quiet conversation with the unknown that asks us to look, to notice, and to remember that the world contains more than meets the eye. As the night deepens and the mind drifts towards sleep, the lights fade into memory, leaving behind a sense of continuity and connection. They are the invisible threads linking the ancient with the modern, the mythic with the tangible, the human with the cosmic. Each flicker, each glow, becomes part of a larger story, a story of awe, curiosity, and the enduring mystery of the skies above. They are companions for dreams, whispers of the past, and invitations to imagine, to wonder, and to sleep beneath a sky that has witnessed it all. The narrator's voice slows, almost dissolving into the night, carrying the listener gently through the quiet spaces between stars and earth. The desert, the mountains, the forests, and the seas all seem to breathe together, harmonizing with the unseen movements of luminous phenomena. As the last traces of light fade from the imagination, there remains only calm, curiosity, and the enduring sense that some mysteries are meant not to be solved, but to accompany us through the quiet, infinite expanse of night. In this way, the lights are eternal. They rise and fall, appear and vanish, touch human perception and then retreat. They are a lullaby of the cosmos, an invitation to rest, to wonder, and to dream. They remind us that history and mystery are inseparable, that the unknown has always walked beside humanity, sometimes descending from the sky, sometimes whispering through the land, always present, always patient, and always luminous. Beneath the quiet sky, the world exhales. The narrator's voice lowers to a hush, like the final breath of a story that has carried us through millennia. The stars above shimmer, as if in slow motion, soft and steady. They have seen the same questions rise and fade, from the first fires lit by ancient hands to the satellites that now circle the earth in silent vigil. Here, under the gentle rhythm of night, everything feels closer, past and present, myth and science, dream and reality. The strange lights that once frightened shepherds and fascinated explorers are the same lights we watch today, our eyes filled not with fear, but with wonder. Humanity's questions remain unchanged. Only our language for them has evolved. The narrator pauses between phrases, allowing the silence to speak. It's a comforting silence, the kind that invites reflection rather than resistance. We are reminded that for all our searching, for all the telescopes pointed outward and the probes sent beyond the solar wind, we are still the same curious beings looking up, just as those before us did. The mysteries of the sky have never been solved completely, and perhaps they were never meant to be. The not knowing itself is a kind of peace. To accept that the universe will always hold secrets is to make peace with infinity, to rest within the unknown. Images drift gently through the narration. The flicker of ancient fires mirrored in starlight, the hum of wind across open seas, the soft ripple of water where ships once vanished. The narrator recalls the voyagers who looked to the heavens for guidance and found both direction and mystery. They sailed into darkness, believing the discovery awaited, and in their courage, they became part of the same story we now tell. Each journey, each gaze into the night sky, has carried forward an invisible thread, one that connects all who have wondered about what lies beyond. As the voice continues, it becomes more intimate, almost like a bedtime story whispered across time. The narrator speaks of how every age has had its lights, torches on distant hills, the flicker of oil lamps, the first electric bulbs, the glowing screens we hold now in our palms. Yet above them all, the stars have burned unchanged. Their light travels for thousands of years to meet our eyes, carrying with it memories of worlds that may no longer exist. In that sense, every night sky is both ancient and alive, a meeting place for the living and the long gone. The calm rhythm deepens, each sentence flowing into the next like the tide. The narrator muses that perhaps the universe is not silent at all. Perhaps it hums in frequencies we do not yet hear, in the space between seconds, in the pulse of our own hearts when we stand beneath the stars. Maybe the strange lights are not intrusions, but invitations, gentle reminders that the story of the cosmos is still unfolding, and we are part of its telling. The unknown is not distant. It lives quietly within us, in every question we dare to ask. The soundscape softens. A slow wind passes through tall grass, and somewhere in the background, a faint echo of the sea returns. The narrator speaks of rest, not just the rest of sleep, but the deeper rest that comes from acceptance. We do not need to chase every answer. We can let the mystery be, like a lantern flickering far across the water. It is enough to know that we are small and that we belong to something vast and kind. In this balance between insignificance and wonder, there is serenity. The narrative begins to fade toward closure. The strange lights of the past, the lost voyages, the ancient whispers, all merge into one endless continuum. Humanity, the dreamer, has always walked between earth and sky, reaching upward with open hands. Every age has left behind its questions, and those questions have become the stars themselves, points of light in the darkness, eternal and patient. The narrator's final words carry the listener gently toward silence, that the universe is not waiting to be understood, only witnessed, that mystery itself is the lullaby of existence. The voice softens even further, becoming almost indistinguishable from the background hum of night. Look up, it says, and rest. The same sky that watched the ancients now watches over you. The same lights that guided the lost still shine. Their mystery is your comfort. Their distance, your peace. The music fades into stillness. What remains is the quiet pulse of being, the soundless rhythm of a universe that has never stopped whispering to those who listen. And in that stillness, the viewer drifts, not into answers, but into dreams, carried by the timeless comfort of the quiet sky.